evening, dear friends. I'd like to begin by offering a meditation so we can find a comfortable position, coming back to our bodies, bringing our awareness inside. Aware of our whole body, inviting our body to be relaxed and at ease. Coming back to ourselves in a very gentle way. Aware of our body, relaxing our body. And sending our loving kindness to our whole body, to all the cells in our body. And then bringing our awareness to our inner heart, our feelings. Aware that there may be some tenderness when we come back home to ourselves. And accepting whatever we find there, just as it is. And offering warmth, loving kindness to our heart. Filling our heart like a gentle sun. Embracing our heart with our peacefulness. I am here for you. My heart, my inner child. I offer you space so you can breathe. Breathing in I feel full with my own love and warmth. And breathing out, I feel complete and peaceful. Thank you for practicing together. When I thought of you all being on retreat, I thought for myself sometimes I feel very tender in my heart, especially if I'm bringing children and it's maybe the first time and I'm very worried that they might be being too noisy or something like that. So I wanted to start by finding and caring for that tender place inside. So I'd like to ask for everybody's support tonight in helping to translate what I share for your own life. Because I know there are many parents here, but there are also some non-parents here. But I was ready to speak with parents, so I'll do my best to translate it, but I might forget sometimes. But maybe support me by translating it for yourself, finding meaning in it. So before I became a parent, I spent quite a bit of time in the monastery, and I learned the joy of practicing mindfulness in my daily life. And after I left the monastery, I found it was quite different, which I'm sure you experience every time you come to retreat and then go home. There's not all that support, and life moves much more quickly. And then I became a parent, and it was even more of a shock. I had many beautiful fantasies of what it would be like to be a parent. And when my child was about 1.5, I realized that the reality was extremely different than what I was imagining. And I felt like I was lacking, I was missing the quality of life that I really wanted to have with my child. And I realized that it was just really different to practice mindfulness with a 1.5-year-old who never stops moving. And whose emotions are always changing very quickly, and it's kind of creating chaos wherever they go. And So I realized I needed to train myself in how to be present with a little being who's moving very quickly. Because I just didn't know how to get there easily. And so what I did is I set up certain times every day where I would train myself. I didn't have much time for sitting meditation, so I imagined this was like my core practice, like my sitting meditation practice. And I was very diligent in doing this practice. And one of the times I chose was brushing teeth because that happened every day. So I knew I wouldn't forget it. And then I also chose another time where I chose something fun that I'd like to do on different days, the same time, 10 o'clock. I did painting one day, I did baking one day, a nature walk another day. And so when we would go up to brush teeth at night to get ready for bed, as soon as I entered the bathroom, I would practice like I was entering the meditation hall. So I would notice first what was happening in myself. Notice the thoughts that were pulling me in many directions. Notice if I was agitated. And I would start with just letting go. Letting go. Letting go. Until I became present in the room. And I could find a feeling of space inside. For me, that's exactly how I practice with sitting meditation or walking. First, I notice what's happening. Where's my mind? Where are my feelings? My body? And then releasing, relaxing, coming back to this moment. And then I would notice the details of that present moment. And that would also help anchor me right there. So I would notice the light, the sounds of the birds in the evening, any of the texture of that moment. And really soften into it. And then I would just witness my child with fresh eyes. I would pretend like I'd never seen him before. And then I could see what a miracle he was, how beautiful every little thing he did was. I didn't take anything for granted or miss it. I just witnessed him and opened my heart to a feeling of reverence for his life. And that was the basic space I would hold as we did our getting ready for bed. And then the last practice I would do was to be aware of my reactivity and to practice deep listening. So really listening to whatever he was saying and let it come in, and quieting my mind from reacting or jumping ahead. Yeah, so. Because as a parent, especially of a 1.5-year-old, you're always jumping ahead in your mind. Is he going to knock over that cup of water? He's going over to the toilet, whatever. So kind of quieting that down so I could see what he was really doing, what his real experience was in that moment. This practice really changed my relationship with my child. Within like 4 days, I noticed a difference in many situations, especially situations where we usually had tension. And actually going to bed at night was one of those moments, because we would both be cranky and tired by then. And usually I would be a little bit anxious that it was getting even later and he would get even more cranky and we might have a total meltdown if we didn't get in bed soon. But the more, in the past, the more I would rush him, the more tense we would both become and the slower he would go. So the tension would just kind of build up at that moment. But with this new practice, the whole atmosphere changed. And because I was able to really listen to him and respect deeply whatever he was doing, he sort of trusted me. He trusted me, and there was like a harmony that grew between us. And I felt like he had his space to have his experience, and then if I had to gently guide him from dumping water all over the floor or something like that, I was more sensitive and more respectful. So he wouldn't have a big reaction because I was kind of jumping all over what he was doing. And that radiated out into all different areas of our life. It also gave me the experience that I was really looking for to have with my child, which was happiness in the present moment. Enjoying our life together. Really being connected with each other. So I call that practice dropping into presence. And it really took some training at first to know what is it like to let go, to come down in, to be there and have space. But once I got used to it, I was able to do it in all different moments, especially when it was needed or in a particular moment that was very beautiful. I knew how to just drop in, and we would have that moment of life together where I was fully there and we could share it. To me, that's been the most powerful practice as a parent with my child, is knowing how to drop into the present moment with them and be with them without reacting, without judging, with space and with respect and love. And it's really the foundation for our relationships. It's also very healing when one of my children would fall and hurt their knee, and they come running up. If you greet them with that, instead of, oh, what happened, is it okay, and being all anxious, but you greet them with just dropping everything else, finding space inside, and just loving them with whatever they're feeling. I can feel this healing happens right away. They just calm down. And it's the same with emotions. If they're feeling very upset, that's the same practice I have. Is to just be with them and not judge them, not try to fix it right away. But be there with a lot of love, but a lot of space. 100% of myself. And they can feel it. So I don't need to teach them or talk to them necessarily that this is how we embrace feelings. I mean, I can do that over time, but so much more powerful is if I am doing that practice when they are upset or when I'm upset and they see it, they feel it, when they're little, we kind of help them by doing it around them when they're in our arms or next to them as they get bigger. But from that, they know they're more than their emotions. They know that there's something else there. If my child's getting really upset and then I'm freaking out too, they don't get that experience in their body. Yeah. Mm. So, in this retreat, I'd like to invite us all to train a little bit in this practice, because I think it will be a really helpful anchor if you do it while you're here, to then take home. And I'd like to invite us to imagine doing it right now. For me, that's the first step in learning something new. I like to sit and imagine it, because it helps my consciousness to kind of know how to get there, what it feels like. It gets used to it. And then it's easier to do it in real time. Yeah. So let us imagine we're with our child. You may like to close your eyes and do it like a meditation. We're with our child and we're feeling very distracted. Maybe pull up a project that you're kind of stressed about. Or maybe you're actually on your phone texting somebody about something really important and your child is asking for your attention. And now let's imagine we decide this is a moment my child really needs me. I'm going to practice dropping into presence. And so you release, let go of that project, that text, that anxiety that was maybe in your body. Let go of the thoughts that are bringing you someplace else. And find a feeling of space again. Feel yourself becoming present for that particular moment. And then look at your child and see what a wonder they are. Open your heart. Thank you. Mm. Last fall I went to a retreat for mothers. They called it a Dharma Mamas retreat. I was co-facilitating the retreat. And at the end of the retreat we were given a little string and invited to sit for a moment and think of an intention that we wanted to bring home with us in relationship to our children. And when I sat quietly, I thought of one of my daughters. I have 3 children. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And when I sat quietly and just opened my heart to see which one of my children could use some support, one of them popped up. And I saw that what she really needed from me is for me to be curious about her, to be interested. Yeah. And to have confidence in her. This combination. So we tied the bracelets on each other, and that was my intention. My intention was to have curiosity and confidence in her when I went home. And I found this little bracelet really helpful. That when I see it, sometimes it reminds me, and I just say, oh, curiosity, confidence. And it just reminds me. And I've been able to really bring that into my life with her, and it's really deepened our connection, and given her a feeling of confidence, really, and stability. She was kind of looking for an anchor, and I hadn't been finding the time to offer that. And so that's been growing since last fall. It's very beautiful to see her growing and to feel how that nourishes her. So that's why I gave us all strings. I thought we could use them to remind us of a dropping in practice with our children while we're here. If we don't have children, it can be dropping in with ourselves. I think you can kind of just translate child to yourself with all of this. Because we all have a child inside that needs the same kind of attention as the children outside. Or if you have a loved one with you, you can practice with your loved one, partner, or family member, or friend. So the bracelet can be a reminder of the dropping in, being there, listening. And now I want to take a moment again to look inside and see if there's anything we want to add to that. So we can close our eyes if we want to, and think of ourselves or our partner, our friend, or one of our children. And just see if there's any special kind of support that we can see. Would nourish them. A certain type of listening or appreciation that we can bring to them. So I'd like to invite us to turn to our neighbor to pair up in twos. And offer to tie the bracelet on. It's hard to tie your own bracelet on. And also we actually receive the support of the Sangha when we do it for each other. If you don't have a partner near you, can you raise your hand and then you guys can look for each other and find a partner? And you can tell each other who you're thinking of. And if you want to share a little bit more, you can share a little bit more. If you don't want to, you don't need to. Our practice in this tradition is always inviting us to come back to see the beauty in life, to see how amazing it is to be alive, to have a body, to be on the earth, to have eyes that can see the trees and the sky. I feel like our modern life can really steal our whole life away from us. Things are going faster and faster, and we are encouraged to always want more and more things, or more and more stimulation. And especially our devices, they're constantly bringing us out of life to other places. So underneath, inside of us, we have a feeling like we never have enough. We always need to be getting more. Yeah, and we just keep running and taking things in, watching things. But the quality of our life, it just goes down the more we do that. It's really a shame to lose our life. And we don't mean to. It happens very subtly. It's just sucked out with all the things we have to do. Yeah. And all the distractions we have. But we're so lucky to have a practice like this that helps us to notice that that's happening and helps us to realize actually we are the creator of our lives. We are the artist of our life, and we have a choice if we take it. But we have to make that choice, not to have society and advertising and news, directing our life. And for me to do that, I need to kind of cut out some of that influence so that I'm the one choosing. Yeah. So creating some protection for ourselves, for our life, for the quality of our life. We tend to think, oh, I'll have a high quality of life when I get everything done on my list. This project, and paint the lawn chairs, and when it's all ready, then I'll sit down and I'll enjoy my life. But we never really get there. As soon as we sit down, we're distracted by something else. Yeah. Real happiness, it doesn't come from those things out there. It comes from knowing how to let go of those things. So we have freedom. So we can just be ourselves and be content. Happiness and contentment are a feeling, an experience we have inside. And they don't come from things or achievements. They come from letting go of all that grasping and all our fear, so that we can just be happy, so we can just be alive. Be present for this amazing moment. Yeah. So our children also really need this. first of all, if we don't ever stop and give ourselves space, then that's what our children will learn. They'll learn to always be running, to always be afraid or grasping. If we know how to stop and let go and enter into our life, they'll learn that. They'll know what that feels like. These days there's so much coming at children, so much stimulation, and I think it can be really overwhelming for them. It's really helpful to protect them. In a really basic way, for me, it's just protecting them by, like, after school, nothing's going on sometimes. I'm not running around doing 10 errands, and there's no devices. They just come home and play. They go outside, or they go and they play with their toys on the floor. My older son, he comes home, he gets out of the car, he's off into the woods. You know, he's been taking in a lot. School's really intense. You're with your peers for like 6 or 7 hours, or having new information given to you. And you need to decompress that, to relax. And to do that, you need space. If you come home and there's new things coming in from then until you go to bed, that's too much. Too much for them to have things coming in all the time. So give them space, protect their space. And in that, first they'll kind of decompress and relax. They'll settle down. And maybe they'll process something that's been going on. And then they'll have time with themselves. If stuff is always coming in, they never get to know themselves. They know what's on the TV show, these characters, or the radio, or whatever it is. But they don't know in here. You only know in here when you have some quiet and space. And so those moments of quiet playtime, or inside or outside, they're really important for the children to find this relationship with themselves and also to life. Life that's alive and growing. And they need that connection. That's where our meaning really comes from. Connection with real life. Not long after my third child was born, so I had a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn, I felt like my partner and I were really hitting rock bottom with the quality of our life and our quality of parenting, because we were too underslept, and it's amazing how many parenting skills we have when we become parents. We didn't know they were there, but they just pop out. It's from our ancestors. And some of them are not very pretty. They can be pretty unskillful. I had no idea they were there, but, you know, the kids are acting out and here it comes. Yeah. And so I saw a lot of ancestors parenting our children at that point. And so we left the children with my mother, and my partner and I went for a walk in the snow. And I said, I'm not going to go on like this. I can't go on. Being a parent is too precious. These little beings are too precious. I don't want to just keep being busy and transmitting these seeds, these unhappy seeds to them. And I didn't know at that moment what that meant. I just knew I couldn't go on in that way. It's really easy to just go on in that way for many years, hoping it will get better. Parenting in a way that you wish you weren't parenting. Yeah. But I felt my love for my children and my spiritual ancestors speaking in me and saying, we can do this better. So what my partner and I decided to do was we decided to have a stopping moment every week where we could look at our parenting together. So we do that. We have a date every Friday, and the first half is part is beginning anew with each other, and then we practice looking at our family happiness and our children's happiness together. So it's not just rolling along on habit energy. It's not just rolling along on what society gives us. We stop and we look. And we'll ask the question sometimes, usually we see, what's going well? Because it's really important to notice that and to strengthen that just by recognizing it. And then we look, what's not going well? Yeah. And we might see that there's a particular moment in our life, in our family, where we tend to get really stressed out, or there isn't much happiness. So what we'll do then is we'll take that moment and we'll see what could we do differently? Yeah. And then we make an intention to do that differently. Like maybe if the kids tend to fight in the car, we might see that, it can get really tense in the car at this after school when everyone's tired. Okay, what could we do differently? And then we would make an intention for the next week. And the nice thing about doing it every week is that it doesn't just get lost, because for me that happens a lot. I see, that's what I need to do, and then I don't have that thought again for 6 months. What happened to that? That would have worked so well if I had just done it. But life, especially with children, is so busy. So we keep coming back. It's like our Sangha, our weekly Sangha. Yeah, or our daily sitting. We keep coming back, and you can see, and it can strengthen your aspiration to live in a different way. So sometimes we'll make an intention, and then we come back next week, and it's just like that. We didn't do it once the whole week. Yeah, but at least then we say, okay, let's try again. And sometimes we do it once or twice the next week, and then we congratulate ourselves, and it takes a little while, but finally we get a new pattern is set. And our whole quality of life can change from that. We also like to look at each of the children. So one week we might look at our 13-year-old and just say, how is he doing? Just kind of reflect on that. We also like to water his flower, which means to notice the good things in him. to each other, what's going well, and then what isn't going so well, how can we support him more? And then maybe another week we'll pick up another child. How is she doing? One of the things we saw right away is that we're starting a community and are largely self-employed, so our work kind of washed over into our whole life. So emails could be popping in at any moment. There was no real boundary, and we realized that was taking away from the quality of our life as a family to have that intruding into our space all the time. So what we decided to do was go for an evening walk, a walking meditation, at the end of the day around 5 o'clock. And the first intention in this was to really separate our work from our family life. So as we would start walking, we practiced letting go of the day, the projects, the things that can kind of sit on your heart and distract your thinking from what's happening around you. We let it go. And then we would notice the beauty of that moment, of the world around us, and really settle into that space of being in the present moment. And sometimes our children will come with us, which is lovely, and sometimes they don't, and we just walk together, and sometimes we only have 5 minutes. But just those 5 minutes with that intention is really helpful. And then after that, we decided we would try to stay off of our devices. So we could really live our life and enjoy it and be there for them. I like to attach joy to my practice, or something pleasant, because I find it helps me to do it. So in terms of nourishing yourself in your daily life at home, or creating practice times with your family, I invite you to make it fun, to be creative. So one of the practices that I have where I practice and strengthen my practice of dropping into presence is weekly biking trips that we do as a family. So Michael and I, we try to put these little moments into our daily life where we nourish joy together, where there's nothing else going on. And especially if we can get outside, we try to get outside. And so one of these is a weekly bike trip. We'll go to different places as a family and bring our bikes with us. And as soon as the bike comes off the car and I sit on it, that's my moment of like sitting on my cushion. I always do the same practice. I let go. I start with letting go. Letting go of everything else and just being there. And for the whole hour and a half that we're riding bikes together, I'm just being there with myself, with the trees, and with the children. So we have these rich moments of joy and connection together. And they have no idea that I'm practicing. But I'm transmitting to them what it is to be at ease, to be happy, to be connected with other people, to enjoy life, to have freedom. there was a few fun practices that we did started this last winter, and one was just lighting a candle. Michael and I really wanted to end the day with a little sit, and we didn't even invite the children. We just went and sat on our bed, and we lit a candle, and they kind of follow us everywhere in the evening. So they came and piled on the bed, and we said, we're gonna sit quietly. You guys can sit with us if you want. And so sometimes they curl up and put their head on our lap, or sometimes they sit there. And we invited the bell, and then we started letting them invite the bell. And we'd sit just for like 4 or 5 minutes. But when I think about the winter, that was such a deep moment of happiness. To sit in quietness with a candle each night, and to feel the presence of the children and myself was so sweet. I also discovered the practice of, this came from one of the big snowstorms. We had so many snowstorms in New Hampshire last winter. Lots of snow days, being out, long days in the snow. And we ended one of these days with playing cards in bed with tea and cookies. So like just sitting we have a big king-size bed. We just all went up there because we were cold and tired and played cards. Made a tea tray with a pot of tea and cups, and the kids had a lot of fun pouring the tea, having their cookie. Yeah, so carving out these moments to just be together. I really like to use my meditation sometimes to gain insights into my daily life. Because when you're sitting, you have some space and quiet, and you see more deeply what's happening. And so sometimes I'll meditate on my own life, on the quality of my life, and ask myself, am I living the life I really want to live? Yeah. Where am I finding happiness? Where am I suffering still? And do I want to change something in my life? Or is there a particular seed of suffering I want to take care of? And I also like to meditate on my children in this way. So I'd like to invite us all to do that practice together tonight. So you can find a comfortable position. Coming back to our bodies, awareness of our bodies. Aware of our breath. Coming back to a quiet place inside. Now bringing to mind either ourselves, a loved one, or our child. And looking over their daily life, my daily life. and seeing where they are thriving, where they're doing really well. Seeing what nourishes them. Seeing where they really laugh. Seeing where they seem really content and whole in themselves. And seeing where they suffer, where they're struggling. And asking, can I see if there's any way I can better support them? How can I support their deep happiness, their unfolding? And we can take a moment now to see if we can summarize in ourselves any insight that we may have found that we'd like to remember when we go home. There may be something new we'd like to do in our daily life, or it may be just a thought or a word that we want to bring to ourselves or our child. And we can use these little white cards to make a little gata card for ourselves, a reminder. I find these very helpful. I have them around my house. When I get an insight about my life or about my child, I write it down so I can keep remembering it until it really integrates into my life. So you could draw a picture, write a little phrase, or even just a word. We'll take just a couple minutes now, 5 minutes. So we each have a couple minutes, and Sister will invite the bell, and we can share with the person next to us. If we'd like to. The partner that we found for our bracelet. You can each share for a couple of minutes. Dear friends, you don't necessarily have to share what's on the paper if that feels vulnerable, but if you want to share any of the insights, in general, with each other. Thank you, dear friends, for creating a sangha together, a community of people aspiring to practice and bringing it into our daily lives. I know at home I always feel supported, remembering there are friends out there also practicing. And it brings me a lot of joy and hope. I'd like to end this evening with a little bit of quiet sitting meditation.